no dicks were cut off this episode, but some fucked up shit still happened. So in other words, pretty decent House of Dragons episode. Game of Thrones is back with its creepy, like, oh, why are you doing that? But I get it because it's part of the story, and you're kind of like grossed out because you're like, we don't do that anymore. But it's medieval times, and they don't like to hold their punches, and they just go straight for it. So, good episode. Welcome. Let's talk about it. Let's just discuss it a little bit. What happened? What's good? What went wrong? Lord of the Rings. You're gonna have a lot to live up to with this series because it's killing it. It starts off. Let's take it from the top again. Didn't read the books. Just watch Game of Thrones. Watching this, just enjoying it. And let me know in the comments how are you feeling about this. This episode's pretty good. It starts off with the crab feeder, and I know very little about him, seeing as, again, did not read the books, but seeing the little glimpses of him, like, this guy's gonna be a dick. And in medieval times, how many different ways can you be like a piece of shit, right? How can you just torture people differently in medieval times? There's some ways, but stabbing people to a post on low tide and having crabs just eat them out like an orgy, that's pretty fucked up. That's top tier savagery from a man who I don't know anything about, other than that he's ridiculous. I like the way he looks. I'm intrigued. The little mask on him puts a little bit of mystery and wonder behind him, like, who really is this guy? And the fact he's doing all this, and like he's with this army slowly closing in, and his name's just being thrown around town, and all we know is this guy captures people pretty much. He's a good warrior and lets crabs eat them alive. Just pinch off their little flesh, the little skin, and do whatever they want. And I'm here for it. Like, give me something cool, something intriguing for a bad guy. How can you make a bad guy and a villain in this medieval times, as opposed to having someone just be like this great ancient knight who's super strong and cuts off people's heads? No, this guy's a great warrior and feeds people to crabs. Sure. I'm into it. I don't see why not. That's pretty fucked up, but go ahead. So the crab feeder, we get to see a little bit of him more than last week's episode, and he's interesting. I'm enjoying him. I love it. And then it dives back into the massive, I almost said King's Canyon from Apex, but you guys get what I'm saying, world of Game of Thrones. We're dealing with the king here. I'm going to pronounce all their names wrong, so fuck you in the comments for saying I'm going to pronounce it wrong, because I am. King Viserys, as he's going through the struggles of losing his wife and his child from last week's episode after making the dreadful call of, yeah, murk my wife, save my child, I want that firstborn. And then next thing later, GG's, both of them are dead. And he's at his council with his men, and they come in, they're like, King, bro, you gotta lay some pipe, right? They're like, you gotta get married. This is, everything in the kingdom belongs to you, and pretty much one of your only obligations is to be married and help produce another heir to the throne. And he's just like, you feel for him. He's like, dude, my wife just got murked, my son's gone that I really wanted, I just promoted my daughter to heir to the throne, but he's like, yeah, I do gotta get married. So we have this weird angle, and the good thing about this episode is you see how everybody around him is for themselves. They want what's best for them, not really the king, but they're playing all as allies and friends. And I'm with you, king, but it's for their own good, to lift them up while trying to be close with the king. How can they be friends with him and eventually maybe overtake him and take the rule to the throne? And we see that a lot in this episode. So last week's episode, we saw, what's his name? Otto Hightower, right? Yep. The king's hand, pretty much, if you guys don't understand. He had his own daughter go to the king when he's working on his, like, Lego set of the kingdom and just spend some quality time. Last week's episode, we were like, man, that's pretty fucked up. I'm sure the king needs quality time. But he had this plan all along that the king's gonna need to get remarried. So she's been there a few nights talking to him, chilling with him, pretty much getting to know him more, and he's opening up to her, and they're building this relationship. You're kind of like, oh, I don't want it, because she's like 16, and she's the princess's Targaryen's like best friend in this realm. And you're like, don't do this, don't get married, don't do any of this stuff, don't do anything crazy. But you know something's going to come out of it. And the king's hand placed her there so then he can try and get closer to the king. And then we have that relationship, quote unquote, going on along with, what's his name? Lord Corlys Velaryon. Trying to set the king up with his daughter. Guess her age. Guess her age in the comments. Just kidding, you watched the episode. Like 12 years old. She's like 12 years old. And you're watching them in one scene just like prance through a garden. And she's like, oh my lord, I would be so delighted to bear your children one day and provide you many, many heirs. And you're just like, I shouldn't be watching this. I can't be. This 12-year-old trying to like write her vows to marriage to the king Viserys, and he's just like, you can tell he's like, man, this is effed up. He's talking to the little girl, and he's like, is this what your mom and dad put you up to? She's pretty much like, yeah. He's like, what does your mom think about this? She's like, well, on the bright side, I won't have to bear your children until I'm 14 and blah, blah, blah. And you're just watching it like, dude, this guy just lost his wife, just his kid. Now he's flirting with a 12-year-old, trying to find the next heir to his throne to reproduce with a wife later on down the line. And you're like, this is fucked up. I should not be watching this, dude. I'm watching with my roommate, and he's like, oh, this is so weird. And you're just feeling that nice medieval, that way Game of Thrones didn't pull punches, and it keeps you intertwined in the world, and you want to see what's happening next. Even when there's less action and more of the drama and world building and politics, you're still entertained just because it doesn't hold back, and you're watching it, and you're just like, oh, you can't be doing this to me. And it's pretty entertaining. And after that, we see later on, we only get a little bit of Daemon this season. I'll get into it in this episode. I'll get into that a little bit. But we see the Princess Targaryen. What's her name? Rihanna. It's not Rihanna, but it's identical. Trying to show herself, trying to prove to people that she is good to be an heir to the throne. Although she may not have a cock and balls, she can still be a good leader. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about, and she's ready to take the mantle. She's going through like warriors to lead a fight, warriors to go and approach Daemon later on in the episode, running through military personnel and stuff like that. And she's trying, you see the King of the Hand trying to help her out and give her wisdom and stuff like that. But you just feel like kind of the disrespect from the men that are just like, you're a woman, you've never held the Iron Throne, and you never will. Why am I listening to you? And what's her name? Princess Rhaenyra Velaryon actually brings that up later on in the episode. She's like, hey, I didn't get the throne, and I'll tell you what, the men in this kingdom would rather burn down the entire kingdom than see a woman sit the Iron Throne. And you kind of feel that as she's going through this role of being a young kid, let's say 15, 16, being appointed heir to the throne of the kingdom, in a kingdom full of men who would rather see this entire kingdom just burn to the ground as opposed to kneeling or talking or listening to a woman. And that's how it was back in those days. And you feel that kind of tension between it as she's trying to lead, and people aren't for her, but some people are, and they gotta respect it because as of right now, she is above them. And it's just this back and forth with people, and you like it. And she's still the cupbearer to the king and the hand of the king, but she's also above all of them as she's the heir to the throne. And there's some conflict going on there, and you see it in this episode. And it comes to the point where she has to make her own decisions. And that's when we get word that Daemon, apparently it's tradition for the Targaryens, when they have a firstborn son or a child or a daughter being born, they put a dragon's egg next to them in their cradle, pretty much. And he wants to do that as well with his child that he's going to have in the future. So he steals an egg, not just any egg. He steals the egg, from what I can tell, that was going to be used with the king's child, his firstborn son, in last week's episode. Kind of fucked up. Kind of like, he's just spitting like on the king while he's down, like, oh, your son's not going to need that egg, right? He's dead. You don't mind if I just, can I borrow this? Because my kid's not going to be dead. If you don't mind if I just borrow this for a little bit for my son that I'm going to hopefully have, because you didn't, because yours is dead from last week's episode. And you're just like, dude, what a dick move. What a dick move. And you see the king's hand. He's like, all right, I'm going to go talk to him. Don't lower yourself to this king. I'm going to go get the egg back and see where it goes from there. So they meet Daemon on a really nice scene right on the bridge. There's kind of fog everywhere. Army be army, or like, it's more like a platoon versus a platoon, or company versus company. And Daemon's just being his dick self. He's like, what am I actually doing wrong here? Or there's a little bit of cockiness, a little bit of like slide to it. He's like, what is going on? I'm just following my family tradition. I don't know what everyone else is doing. I'm following my family tradition. I'm going to bear children soon with this lady, Misery. I think it's pronounced Misery. She has a weird accent, by the way. Did you guys hear her accent? I don't know what it was, but it was kind of like, it was really hard to understand. Anyways, so, and they're going back, and he's like, I'm just following my family heritage, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing nothing wrong here. I want to bear a child. I want this lady to bear my children. And I'm just going to put the egg next to him, because the king doesn't need her, right? His baby's dead. And the king's hand is over there like, no, give him back. And they draw swords at this point. Like, they're about to go fisticuffs. So they draw swords and stuff's about to go down. And then Daemon's like, by the way, you must have forgot. And his dragon just comes on in, perches up on a mountain. He's like, you guys really want to do this? And that's when the queen comes in. And this is really good because she needed something to let everyone know, let those people there know, yes, I'm a woman and whatever, but I'm still a Targaryen. I still control dragons and I can still handle situations. She flies on in, lands her dragon there as well, and hops off. Kind of evens the odds a bit, and you feel that tension between Daemon and Princess Rhaena as she comes up and she's pretty much like, at this point, uncle, I'm above you. I'm the heir to the throne. Give us the egg back. This, and that. And they go back and forth until Daemon eventually just gives her the egg back. But you feel that tension. You feel that awkwardness. There's that slight, like, what's it called? Incest? I think there's a slight hint of that between these two. You can tell it in the first episode. You can tell it in this episode. And she's pretty much like, if you want to end this now and be the next heir to the throne, then you're going to have to kill me right here. Pretty much pulls his sword, turns his back, walks away. Gets out, tosses the egg back, and that scene ends. And we go back to her flying back to the kingdom, and her dad's sitting there talking about, like, you can't be doing this stuff. There's no permission from the king. There's no permission from me to go out there, fly a dragon, and intervene in this situation. And you feel that because her dad has her to the heir to the throne, but doesn't fully respect her. Then she's going out on the limb and trying to make herself, meaning her own name for her known, that she is still a valuable resource despite being a woman in this realm that would rather see the kingdom burn to the ground than a woman be a part of the throne. And so he's mad at her. Personally, I think she did the right thing, and it's helping her build up her name in the kingdom. And then it comes to the dreadful part. When it ends, that ends. He talks to her. He's like, hey, okay, that's fine. You did that. I get that. How do you feel about me taking another, like a wife? I need a wife. I have to marry. We both know that's my duty as king. Would you care? He's trying to ask for his daughter. He's like, I'm sorry. I haven't talked to you that much. Your mother's gone. He's like, my wife may be gone, but also your mother is gone. And I haven't put much time. I haven't put much thought into you. I've been trying to rule the kingdom. I've been trying to hide my emotions. He's like, I have to get married. So you get this nice father-daughter moment. And she eventually is like, you know what? I get it, Dad. This is your duty, your responsibility to the kingdom. I'm okay with you remarrying. I know it will not be my mom and whatever and the queen, but I support you taking this. But she doesn't know this whole time that he's talking about marrying her best friend. Like, that would be completely different. If he was just like, yeah, I'm trying to bag your girl, like your best friend. I'm trying to bag her. Then you would be like, obviously, Rhaena would be like, no, I ain't about that. So she doesn't know. The king calls a meeting. Everyone's there, right? You got the king's hand. You got Lord Corlys Velaryon. You got the rest of the king's personnel showing up to this meeting. And Lord Corlys is like, I know what this is about. I'm about to be like heir to the throne, tied together. We own a strong military. The world's going to be back to normal and we're going to be better than ever. And the king makes his announcement. He's like, I've decided to take a wife to the throne. And Lord Corlys is like, yeah, fuck yeah, he's about to bag my 12-year-old daughter. And then he announces he's taken, what's her name? Alicent Hightower. Queen Rhaenyra's best friend and the king's hand's daughter in this situation. And you just see Lord Corlys is pissed, walks out, leaves. You know who else leaves? Princess Rhaena. She's like, what? Because she knows she just had that conversation with her dad, and she said yes, but he made no effort at all to tell her that it was going to be her best friend. And that's going to cause drama and turmoil and bullshittery in the next few episodes, as we can tell. And it ends with a little bit of a glimpse of Daemon and Lord Corlys Velaryon. I almost messed it up. Sorry, so many names. Meeting, talking about how they can kind of maybe overthrow the king, do a little coup d'etat, and take the throne back. Ends really well. Still respect for Daemon. At the end, there's this part where Lord Corlys is like diminishing the king. He's like, yeah, he's not that powerful. I always thought you'd be better. Blah, blah, blah. And Daemon's like, that is my brother. I will talk about him however I want. But you're going to watch your mouth. You get that respect. You still feel that brotherly respect between Daemon and King Varys as brothers and siblings and family. How he still respects him and stuff. But then it just ends with the cliffhanger of what's going to happen next. And the glimpse for next week's episode looks great. Looks like we're getting a battle. Looks like we're getting more crab feeder. I think that's what he's called. Looks like we're getting a lot more of the princess trying to do her work, but then we also see the turmoil starting between the princess and her best friend, Allison Hightower, and it looks like it's going to be another good episode. I enjoyed it. You guys need to let me know in the comments how you liking the series so far. It's coming out like swinging. It's keeping us entertained. It's keeping us good. There's stuff pulling us till next week's episode because we're enjoying it. So let me know in the comments, how do you feel about it? Also subscribe because we have a lot more and we still have to cover. Fucking She-Hulk, man. What the fuck is that?